Coming up, one day removed from the Brooklyn Nets opening night loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers, we dive back in on the enigma that is Ben Simmons. Is there simply a refusal to shoot? And how could that have long-term ramifications on the Nets seasons? Plus, Jacque Vaughn quotes and rotation speculation. We dive in coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. Over there, you're going to find Doug Norrie. Over here, Adam Armbrecht. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms. And let you know today's episode is brought to you by Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/LockedOnNBA. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. And Doug, there might be a late fee for one Ben Simmons in terms of his shots. Didn't quite get them up there as much as we hoped. We're going to talk, again, rotations, some of the coaching decisions from Jacque Vaughn as we work our way through this episode, reviewing in a little bit of a deeper dive last night's game. But ultimately, if Ben Simmons isn't going to shoot, then the Brooklyn Nets are going to have a problem.
Yeah, look, if coming into last night's game, we were making predictions about where we thought some of these stat lines would be. I went on like the under on some of his points, just stuff, because I just thought that I didn't see enough in the preseason to make me really believe that he had turned a corner on the most glaring issue in his game over the last year plus, which was his, ability to get to the rim and press the defense and take shots. And that didn't change at all from the first game. I know he played limited minutes. He got up 6 shots. If you take him to 32 minutes, it's like 8.3 shots. That's just still totally unacceptable. And there, because I know people, there was pushback on it. So if it was starters minutes, it would have been there. This is very easy math. Just divide the shots by the minutes and times however many minutes you want him to play, and you'll see what the shots would have been. It's way too low. If he's going to put up single digit shots, if he's going to put up single digit shots in starters type minutes, like low 30s minutes, I'm just not really sure what there's just such a ceiling on where the Nets can go offensively around him, even if you put everything perfectly around him. Agreed that there are better fits around him than, like, just say Claxton. If it's space with shooters, then that looks a little less problematic. But the whole upside of having Simmons on this team as a $30+ million a year guy is that he has elite vision. Great. The assists were good. He has actually a pretty elite rebounding skills. Great. He was a big part of that, 10 rebounds. And he's supposed to be getting to the hole and attacking smaller or slower defenders. And that's just not happening. And I'm just concerned that we could be developing a theme here going forward of just sort of a refusal to do this one part of his game that admittedly doesn't look great at times, but he still needs to press the action.
Yeah, you mentioned it there about, okay, get him up towards starter minutes. Okay, so, what are we looking at? 8 shots in the game and, okay, not 4 points, 5 points. When we talked about it, listen, the rebounds and the assist numbers are right where I wanted them to be. Our last little preview episode coming into the season was saying, can this guy be, I said, a 12, 9, and 8 player? 2 out of 3 is not bad. Unfortunately, I prefer that one of those 2 be the part where he's being productive going at the basket. So the question that I end up coming back to, though, is we heard Jacque Vaughn say in the offseason about Ben Simmons' injuries and not being 100% healthy, and he was asking things of him that he physically wasn't capable of doing. But all those concerns have gone away. So now, is he not doing what you're asking him to do? I actually think that that's the more important question coming out of this first game. We can talk about combinations that make more sense than Nic Claxton and surrounding him with other shooters on this roster. That's all well and good. But if Jacque Vaughn and Ben Simmons communicated this offseason that I'm healthy, I'm ready to go, and I'm ready to have the role that was expected of me as a fully healthy player, and he goes out and mitigates those opportunities that he had last night, that's going to be a theme. And you'll probably be able to look back with everything that could go wrong in a given game and shooters and coaching decisions, everything else. We'll always be able to look back at a game and say, but Ben Simmons didn't attack the basket. That cost you 3, 4, 5 possessions in a game, and that's going to be the difference more often than not.
Yeah, look, if you see a mashup, and there's been a couple of these posted during the day, while we're recording this, you see a mashup of all of his shots. We saw this in the moment, is that he's just not going hard enough at the rim. Like he's sort of, he fades away. There's no like attempt to punish the basket. There's no, and honestly, it just looks like it's like super passivity around when he starts to get close. It's hesitant to want to shoot to begin with, right? Like as evidenced by the under the basket kick out for three, whatever. Like you see you're getting a contest from a bigger player. You can make some case that that's an okay move. Not really, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt even on that one. The other times where he's actually getting to the rim, when he goes to finish, you can see it. Like there's like sort of a part where like he pulls up, right? And and I don't mean like a pull up, like a stop it, like a Luka, deceleration where it's awesome from the mid range, or Trae Young,
Right.
where he's like this elite deceleration guy, acceleration, getting it through the pick and roll, and like really taxing defenses on what to do with the roller. Like that's not that. It's just like you can see him. It's almost like he gets to the rim, is like, I don't want to do this, but here we go, right? And
Yeah.
it's short arming it, and it's dead balling it, and that's just on the 6 shots he took, right? Which is nothing. Right? He took no shots here. So I just get really worried that the hope what we saw from all the talk, all the hype coming out of preseason, is going to have a great year, feels the best he's ever been. And I believe that physically, because I think we saw clearly with the other pieces, like the rebounding and assist part, like that part he looks pretty locked in on. Like, especially when he dunked, those have looked with authority, and that's really, really good to see, right? We didn't even see that last year. Like there was hesitation even on the dunks. Like now he had caught the lob last night, and it was like, okay, he threw it down hard. You feel good about that, which makes me even more worried, because that means it's actually not physical, and there's something else here, that it's just like he doesn't want to do this thing. And because he's worried it's going to miss, he's worried it's going to look bad or whatever. And as someone who's dealt this, I hate to put myself in players' shoes here, but as someone who's dealt with the yips from,
I always thought he was the same level.
I know what this is like on some degree. Like I struggle with this at times too. And you have like the lips or the yips, and you're starting to think about the way that your shot is releasing, or if you're just thinking about it rather than actually doing it, actually is a huge problem, right? And really, it's like extends beyond basketball. But the major worry was this, and we're one low 20s minute sample size into it, and there's been nothing to stop me from thinking that was the wrong assessment.
Yeah, I worry that the hesitation when he gets in the air is also about getting fouled and having to go to the line, right? And not feeling confident there as well. So it's like, it's the both, and it's this trickle down effect, right? Is he lacking confidence attacking at the basket, or is he lacking confidence that if he attacks at the basket and gets fouled, that he won't be confident going to the line? He didn't go to the free throw line in this game, right? Like that's as troubling as anything else. Is like, just take the fouls, because one of the biggest benefactors of him driving at the basket, even if it looks bad, even if he missed every free throw, is you build up the fouls on the opposition. Like I think there's a just a smart basketball mentality there that should be utilized here too. It's like, hey, I suck at the line. Great. I may not play down the stretch in the fourth quarter because they don't want to foul me and put me at the line. Fine. But if I can help us get to the bonus every quarter, then when Cam Thomas comes in and lights the world on fire, when Mikal Bridges, when these guys are working, it makes it that much easier for them to get to the line where they can be successful. So I'll even go beyond like whether or not he fundamentally can go do this thing. It's just about what's the best way to serve your team. And that's a part of this as well. So I said it last night. I will be honest, when I slept on it, I didn't feel better waking up this morning about Ben Simmons and this aspect of his game, but I'm willing to extend it all the way to Friday night against the Mavs. And then based on what I see there, that's going to be very deterministic. And by the way, anyone that says it, and Doug's going to say it here too in a minute, 100%, I know the sample's already there. This isn't a 1-game sample size. This is much longer. It's over seasons of his career. So I'm treating it like it's a 1-game, because I want to think that maybe he was so dialed in on facilitating others, on getting guys in good spots, on pushing the pace and fast break, which he did. Everything else was fine. But this very specific thing could be critical and crumbling for this offensive unit. Coming up here in a second, let's not only talk about the rotations here and Nic Claxton and how that relates to Ben Simmons, but also Jacque Vaughn and what he believes is going to be the functional approach that could lead to the Nets having a very deep rotation game over game. We'll get into that in just 1 second. First, though, going to tell you about our friends over at Dave. That's because at one time or another, we all need a little help financially, and that's why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash when you need it in between paychecks and help you build your credit by settling with extra cash advance on time. Now, Dave is a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. When you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Download Dave today at dave.com/lockedonnba. That's dave.com/lockedonnba. You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/lockedonnba. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC.
Also want to tell you about our friends over at Jase Medical. They get the Jase case. That's because there's a ton of uncertainty in the world today. I mean, just look around you. All you can see, there's unrest. They got hurricanes, tornadoes, fires, supply chain issues, earthquakes. Don't even get me started on all the different problems happening in the world. Where you don't want to have problems is with your own health. You want to have the medication you need when you need it. The Jase case has 5 essential antibiotics, treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. This is the kind of stuff you don't want to be caught without if you're traveling, like I said, or just these things are hard to come by. Sometimes just getting to see a doctor can be difficult. Jase case has solved all of this for you. All it takes to get a Jase case, you just got to fill out a simple online form. Sometimes you just jump on a call with one of the board certified physicians. They got those right on staff. You're going to get ongoing care from those physicians. They're going to treat any related questions that you have. This is a doctor created and doctor recommended service. Don't get caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the times that are unexpected. Jase handles everything from the evaluation to the licensed pharmacy medication delivery right to your door. Just go to jasemedical.com, enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. This promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com.
All right, continue our discussion, extending the post-game, really, as you hopefully join us over on YouTube Live for our post-game coverage. We'll be right back there Friday night following the Dallas Mavericks matchup as the Nets will try to take on Kyrie Irving and get a little win there. Be sure to join us. And also, by the way, Doug, get over to the podcast feed where we'll have our bonus game preview exclusively on the podcast feed. Little double dip that we're giving fans all season long. My question to you before we move into Jacque Vaughn, rotation quotes, minutes, and all that good stuff. On Ben Simmons, okay, this is a problem. Him and Nic Claxton probably going to have a hard time functioning together. Who has to not start in order for this to be successful, in order for the team to be successful potentially? Because if I look at both of these players, the guy that doesn't do something that you need him to do, or at least try to do it, is Ben Simmons. It's not Nicholas Claxton. Like, Nicholas Claxton continues to evolve and take that next step in his game. Played physical last night, got bounced around a little bit, only 3 for 10. But guess what? 10 shots. Like, I don't know. Like, should Ben Simmons not be a part of this starting unit if he's not going to shoot like this?
This is hard because this is, again, where I still believe that Ben Simmons, I mean, even for this, taking some digs here, I still believe that Ben Simmons is one of the 5 best players in the Nets, right? So, like,
yep.
And I believe that Nic Claxton is one of the 5 best players in the Nets. And so it's having to feel like, this is repeating some of what we talked about. Like, we understood that this to be the case and understood that this pairing might not be the best that you can, this might not be like the most optimal way to like sort of run a basketball team. This is hard. I don't know because I want to play them both and I don't want to have to take one and not the other. And unfortunately, I can make a strong case that Simmons plus 4 shooters is a really great way to go, right? Like, there's lots of data, even with his non-shooting, there's lots of data that suggests that that is a great way to go. Claxton, unfortunately for him, it's not his fault at all. The Nets don't really have much in the way of, like, we've talked about this many times, pick and roll ball handling, rim running stuff where they can really unlock his best, most athletic potential. Again, that's not his fault, but, besides Dinwiddie, who do they really have that can unlock a lot of what Claxton does really well? Like, they kind of really don't have anybody. And so I'd probably just choose Simmons, but that's not an anti-Claxton take. It's more like the Nets personnel just isn't lined up for him.
I wonder if, so in thinking about this, and it's big picture, but we only get so many games before something needs to be done. I wonder if you're going to keep Cam Thomas explosive as he is in that 6-man role and coming off the bench, then I can paint a picture where having Ben Simmons with him, and we talked about that in the offseason, how that's a good unlocker for Cam potentially. Not that he
Yeah.
necessarily needs to be unlocked offensively, but I can create a second unit pairing with Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas that looks very good, and then you can surround it with whoever you want and bring another ball handler up into that first unit, maybe someone with a little bit of shooting touch. We're getting into spitball territory here when I talk about, okay, is Dennis Smith Jr. a guy that you stick into the starting rotation at some point, or just blend these rotations? Let's put it that way. Where, okay, he's your facilitator. He can attack at the basket. He's obviously much smaller. The lineup gets much smaller, but I have Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Nic Claxton. Yeah, like as long as we have someone that functions in that role, I think that it can work. And we've already seen Spencer Dinwiddie showed us last season he's capable of being a high-level facilitator, averaging 9 assists a game. So there's probably some world where you manipulate it that you can't do it the same way with Nic Claxton, because then you're asking somebody else to need to do this extra lift. Cam Thomas is not going to help Nic Claxton's game in that second unit, right?
Well, and remember too, like if you look back to last night, they ran this unit for a decent stretch. It was the Simmons, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, Mikal, and DFS lineup, right? Like, and during that time, it played about even, I think. And I want to say it was probably like a 6 to 7 minute stretch that they ran that lineup for. Well, it was 6 to 7 minutes where Thomas and Simmons overlapped, and then they kind of moved. They moved some of those other pieces in. Claxton came in at the end. But like Simmons was really productive in terms of like he had 4 assists during that stretch, right? A bunch of rebounds. Like that lineup, I thought looked pretty good. I think that combination for sure works. For sure. Like we said, like Simmons plus Thomas is a very, very good pairing. They should really consider running that more. It's just going to be, and we'll get to Jacque Vaughn here, but like,
yeah,
this is going to take some real care here with like who the pairings are, I think.
And the other option would be Spencer Dinwiddie out of the starting rotation and Cam Thomas in, right? Which is already, fans were already demanding that last night with a quiet night from Spencer Dinwiddie, veterans and all of these things. Like we understand. We're not talking about, hey, you should start burning down the construct and rebuilding it every single night until you find it. But you do need to find the combinations that were going to work. So if that was beneficial, okay, Spencer Dinwiddie, can you help Nic Claxton in some of those pick and roll opportunities potentially in the second unit? And all these things are blended, but something has to be done here if Ben Simmons is not going to shoot. That's the problem, right? This is all circling the drain on if Ben Simmons is not going to be a full complete player, then you have to make all of these concessions. And we talk about how it can impact players like Mikal and like Cameron Johnson early in the game when you just don't have the same rhythm on the offensive end of the court. That being the case, the other part of this, as we mentioned, Jacque Vaughn and his rotations here, and specifically we saw Ben Simmons, so he doesn't play a ton of minutes. And we think, okay, well, it was a low sample size, just getting his feet wet. But then you get our guys, Jacque Vaughn after the game, asked by Eric Slater, won't be 30 plus a lot because of the fact that we have to play extremely hard, and I don't want them coasting. So I want them tired when I check them out of the game. That is going to be the goal for us, and let's see if it works. I got to be honest with you. On the one hand, I could say, deep roster, a lot of guys. We saw the way Dorian Finney-Smith looked in this game, right? Hey, there's roles here. Dennis Smith Jr., okay, I get it. You have players you want to use. But there's a troubling nature to the idea of we want our guys to play hard. So, more than 30 minutes is going to be tricky. And I get, and he was really saying this is both ends of the court, right? High defensive energy at all times. Only playing 30 minutes max and then also seeing if it works. It just feels like we're still in throwing things against the wall territory when it comes to rotations or expectations for your starters underneath Jacque Vaughn right now.
Yeah, I definitely have a bunch of thoughts on this, which I found to be really interesting coming from Vaughn. In some ways I hear it, in some ways I don't. We'll get into that in a second. First, going to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks Daily Fantasy made super easy. You're not wrestling with salaries. You're just going over to Prize Picks, and you're going more or less on the Prize Picks projections. You can win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season. Turns $10 into $250 with just a few taps. That's because on Prize Picks, you're going more or less on, for basketball, it's really easy. It's points, rebounds, assists. Great. But then they do a bunch of combinations, points plus rebounds, points plus assists, 3-pointers made. It's drilled down in every single way you can think about over on Prize Picks. A few clicks away from just having the most fun you can really have when it comes to this stuff. Like I said last night, if you took the more on Cam Thomas, kind of anything with a combination of points, you were cashing that within seconds, it felt like, because of the way Cam Thomas just went completely nuke when it was all said and done. Right now, you're going to go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Look, Prize Picks, they have a reboot policy even too. So even if you're getting in here with football, you can just make sure that you're covered for those guys who exit the game for injuries. No other site's doing that. Prize Picks knows what the fans want and has you covered. Like I said, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy.
All right, so as we continue our conversation, just early season questions and things to consider, Doug. Jacque Vaughn being, of course, chief among them. Feels like the fan base coming out of that game was ready to have Jacque Vaughn in their crosshairs around the issues that they had with him from last season carrying over. We said mixed bag, can understand some of the gripes. Others we think are probably marginal at best, but in totality, there's still a question mark around what Jacque Vaughn's going to do with this roster early in the season.
Look, there were micro issues, I thought, with the coaching for sure. I'm going to get this real quick out of the way before I comment on the minutes part. I think there's some extreme, I don't even think it's nitpicking. You can point to probably 4 separate things that there was done incorrectly near the end of the game. Not having Simmons in as a defense. If you were going offense defense already, which I like that he was doing, he was going offense defense with Thomas and Clax late in the game. To not have Simmons in there as a point of attack defender when Donovan Mitchell is taking that last shot was very curious. I don't understand that. And Cam Johnson, who's working his way back into the lineup after not playing all preseason, him getting that assignment. And I know they switched off DFS. Like, not having Simmons there, big mistake. They did run a long stretch with basically like Royce O'Neal and Mikal Bridges as the only 2 ball handling guys. That's a very curious decision. And I can't blame him for the end of this game stuff as much, because he tried to get the timeout and he didn't. It's clear he was trying to call a timeout and they didn't award him one. So when he saw the play breakdown. Okay, so those are the gripes I wanted to get out of the way first, which I think that everyone, if you rang in with those, I think those are legitimate. In terms of the minutes, look, it's hard to have this both ways. On the one hand, you're like, oh, the starters didn't play any minutes, and that's going to be hard for continuity. On the other hand, the starters were getting rolled, right? And he brought in the bench, and the bench, all the bench guys were plus minutes in this game. Yeah. All the starters were negative minutes. It's like 1-to-1. Cam Johnson -1, Bridges -3, Clax -12, Dinwiddie -10, Simmons -6. The bench, DFS +7, Royce +8, Day'Ron +2, DSJ +5, Cam Thomas +5. Like, okay, well, what do you want them to do? All the bench guys that ate into the starters' minutes, they won all those minutes. So I don't know how you have it both ways. If you're a fan that's saying you should have done this with all the starters, you can't then applaud him for the way they came back with like playing Cam Thomas way more minutes than they probably ever planned to do. That's for sure. So I don't know. It's one game. We'll see how the rotations even out. I understand what he's saying. I think he's hedging that he wants to have deeper rotations, and this is the way you kind of hedge against it. But like, does that make sense what I mean? Like, you can't scream that you want more starters. The starters lost all the minutes they played together.
Yeah, when you hear him talk about in the postgame, I said before, 30 minutes, we don't want to play more than that. We go, how could you not play the starters 35 minutes? To your point, then you go look at the box score and you say, well, maybe they should only play 25 minutes, maybe not 30 minutes. Like, there's just a world where the Nets, because they do have some depth here, and Cam Thomas was a big part of it, that the Nets are going to make up ground a lot of times in the bench, because we think that they can be deeper. We think they can be more successful. We think that Cam Thomas could be one of the better 6 men of the year candidates this season. So offensively, and we said this at the end of the post game last night too, they have Donovan Mitchell. The Nets don't have that singular guy. They're going to, for stretches, be a sum of their parts, and this is how you get there. You pick and choose your matchups. You try to lean into things that are working. Even Dorian Finney-Smith, by the way, I thought that he had a very strong game for himself. Dennis Smith Jr. late in this game came in and had a real role for himself, and I think that that's going to be a bit of an eye-opener potentially, not just for the coaching staff, but for the fan base. We heard this in the offseason. Smith Jr. specifically, he signed for less money, clearly predicated on the idea that whether or not it was a defined role or the opportunity for a larger role than maybe on other rosters. That was the first sample size for him there of that. So I think you're going to see these things expand and go forward. The things you mentioned, yes. The mistakes were made, yes. But I said this over when people were bringing up Jacque Vaughn. Is that more concerning than Ben Simmons? To me right now, that's the biggest overarching issue right now. What is going to happen with Ben Simmons? If that gets checked one way or the other, then you continue to move down the line. The other one's going to be Mikal Bridges, not getting a lot of shots up early in this game. Didn't seem like he was a, defined number one player for this roster. That's a concern too. Played better in the fourth quarter. Cameron Johnson came on better in the fourth quarter. So again, I know that I've kind of swung on each side of this, but it is one game. Like it's one game, and some things are informed more heavily from past seasons, or more heavily from training camp, or more heavily from quotes that we've gotten from players and coaches alike. But I need to see at least a game or two more before I drill down and say these bench players shouldn't be on the court nearly as much. This rotation doesn't work specifically with Ben, this with Claxton, whatever it's going to be. And I feel bad too, because I feel like we're spending time really drilling down on some issues that we saw from this, which is what we need to do. But overall, I came out of that game actually feeling pretty good. Like I felt good about that first game for this team in totality, even if there are these micro issues that need to get sorted out.
Yeah, it's so funny because I agree with you. I came out of this game actually feeling, if I had to let me put it this way. If I had to think about if I had to pile all my feelings together during the game and take 1 second and all of them counted equally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I took 1 second snapshots of how I was feeling to this game, I think I'd come away positive, right? Because and with the understanding that it's not how it works, because the end result outweighs a lot of the other feelings. So when you get the loss, that outweighs,
right.
it's 100-1 difference or something like that. But I agree. As we watch this game in real time, a lot of it, I think we really liked what we were seeing. A lot of this actually was playing well into what we thought this team could be. Get after it hardcore defensively at times, really make it a problem for other teams' best players, get using the length to their advantage, getting out in some transition, right? That stuff I thought was pretty good. At the same time, there's some super troubling things, like the 9 3-point attempts from the starters total is a disgrace in the modern NBA. You can't win. You can't win. If your starters are going to take 9 total 3-pointers, dial them up for a lot of losses. But I think in general, yeah, I'm with you. I think there were lots of really good takeaways here. It's just we're going to get into the weeds on some of these micro decisions, and with Simmons, some of the macro stuff as well. And it could be a long-term theme. I mean, we might end up talking about this a lot this season.
Yeah, which would be unfortunate. I think if I had one hope, it's that it's resolved sooner than later. That the changes, the adjustments, or just the sample size dictates what has to happen here far sooner than later. Because one thing we also said coming this year is the Nets can't afford to take 15, 20 games to figure stuff out, right? 5, 7 games. If we don't see a very crystallized version of this team that more often than not can win these tight games, then we'll start to, I think, really dial up our concern level around the season overall.
All right, we're going to get out of here. Really appreciate everyone that jumped into YouTube the other night for the post game. We're going to be doing those as much as we possibly can over the course of the year. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on the podcast feed where for the bonus episodes, we're going to get the pregame preview going there over just on the podcast feed. Make sure you join subtext.com/LockedOnNets. I unloaded a long text this morning about thoughts following the game, and then I've been going back and forth with fans kind of all day over on Subtext. So make sure you join what's happening over there in Subtext. You want to text Adam and I one-on-one, join subtext.com/LockedOnNets.
Friends are the family we choose. It's Jennifer Aniston. Yeah.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets.
That's nice.
We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball.